people that are apologizing and saying that I'm not mad about it, I am. I don't give a crap who you are. Who wrote this? Who gives a crap? She's not even a Tolkien fan. Oh, hold on. This is very interesting. Hypothetical master's degree in all things Taylor Swift. I called it. This show was made for Swifties. The Rings of Power, I swear, feels like it was made for Swifties. When I say Swifties, I'm talking about the ladies and the girls that are obsessed with love drama. There's nothing wrong with a good love story. There's nothing wrong with a good rom-com. And there's nothing wrong with a good love drama. I'm not going to begrudge that. However, we've taken this multifaceted story that Tolkien has crafted, the events of an entire world with hundreds, thousands of characters moving across the span of centuries, right? And they decided to kind of make it weird. I understand that season 2, they've announced that there's going to be a bunch of battles. There's going to be a lot of man stuff, I guess. But that's not where they started from, because if you look at the fan reactions, everyone's just shipping from last season Galadriel and Sauron, which is the weirdest bastardization of these characters and the motivation that Tolkien originally meant for this. And I'm not going to say that, I don't want to say that the creators intended to do this, but the creators intended to do this pretty much. So if you take a look at this article from Collider that was released 3 days ago, it's titled, "The Rings of Power Season 2 is fully leaning into enemies to lovers, and I'm not mad about it." This is the same thing we saw with the Acolyte, with being seduced by the dark side, with Kymir and Osha, and the sexual tension and the love story between good and evil, right? That's so weird. It's so anti the actual good versus evil of the story of Middle-earth and Galadriel and Sauron, that it's wrong. It feels disappointing to consider in this manner. And I'm going to read through some of this article because I'll be honest, it's quite upsetting to hear people reacting to this like, oh, this is a wonderful thing. This is not a wonderful thing. This is cringy, man. This is very cringy. So, one of the master strokes of The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 1 is the dynamic between Galadriel and Halbrand, or as we know him, Sauron. Those names have become pop culture staples since basically, the Peter Jackson trilogy, or, the books, I guess. Galadriel, played in those by Cate Blanchett, represented serene wisdom. Sauron, eerily voiced by Alan Howard, conjured images of greed, molten lava, and feral rage. The reaction in this is basically, we really like the love story between good and evil. It makes it interesting. It's fresh. It's new. But all it comes across as cringy, because this is a out of place type of story that's honestly kind of like a depraved love story, if we're being honest. It's the girl wants to be with the bad boy scenario. And it's not a good look at all for a good versus evil epic where there is drama, there is love stories, never, of course, even insinuating in the books that Sauron and Galadriel ever encountered each other in such a manner that they even got to know each other on any kind of deep emotional level, even spent significant time with each other. Never. I think it's and so you get into the whole thing with Anatar, right? So we know season 2, Anatar is going to be brought up. Galadriel in the books, for people who are wondering, is nowhere near Celebrimbor, and is actually with her daughter, and she's married, and she is very skeptical of Sauron. She sees through, she is wise, and she sees through the deception of Sauron disguised as Anatar when they're making the rings of power. From a distance, she basically says, hey, we should distance ourselves. This feels wrong. I don't trust this Anatar fellow, right? Where Celebrimbor is just kind of blinded by the powers and the ability that he's discovering through the secrets of forging and creating magic that Anatar is bestowing upon him. And they don't listen to her pleas. So I'm not going to say that season 2 is not going to try to right some of these wrongs. But what I am going to say is that even if they are trying to calibrate these characters to be more positioned in the story with what actually happens in the events of Middle-earth, you're a season 2 late. We keep hearing these articles about the creators and the actors, the cast, saying there was a lot of setup that needed to happen in season 1. Well, all that it feels like to me is you set up a bunch of garbage because you set up nothing that's based in lore. And with Galadriel specifically, it's incredibly disappointing that they chose to make her this naive girl boss, I guess, where she can basically fight. She can, best all of the Númenórean men. And yet at the same time, she's wise, but doesn't know what she wants. So she jumps off a ship in the middle of the ocean and gets rescued by Sauron. And then this whole emotional connection they make all through season 1 is so silly and so corroding of the foundation of who Galadriel is as a character, all for the sake of saying, like, let's present, because this is interesting, let's present the idea that Sauron is so powerful to be able to deceive Galadriel and actually get her to feel some kind of emotion and feeling toward him, to when he reveals who he is, he propositions that they can rule over Middle-earth as the most powerful beings, as king and queen. And they literally, the writers just thought of that and said, oh, that's interesting. Let's try that. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Without even considering the fact that fans kind of want to see a story that's consistent with existing source material, that's consistent with what Professor Tolkien's vision of this story would be, what he spent a lot of time keeping track of and writing down, and what people online like Nerd of the Rings have in great detail ironed out in video form, all of the details about these characters and where they were in Middle-earth at what time and what were their motivations and how did Tolkien describe them in the books. And the writers just completely sidestepped that because they were more interested in telling an interesting story about a girl coming of age, right? And that's very disappointing, especially at this time in Middle-earth. If you wanted to tell a love story, you would need to go back to like the First Age and tell the story of when she met her husband. Tell the story of coming of age of when she left Valinor and what wanted to see Middle-earth and all of that, where elves fought it, where elves would be fighting elves, right? That whole conflict. You can get into her coming of age, but at this point in the show, when the show's taking place in the history of Middle-earth, when the Rings of Power were being made in the Second Age, she's already like somewhere in the realm of 3,400 years old. And yet they're trying to make her like this sweet coming of age, kind of like she falls for the bad boy kind of situation. And the people that are apologizing and saying that, like this article where they say, I'm not mad about it. I am. I don't give a crap who you are. Who wrote this? Kelsey Matson? Who gives a crap? She's not even a Tolkien fan. Oh, hold on. This is very interesting. Hypothetical master's degree in all things Taylor Swift. I called it. I called it. I called it. This show was made for Swifties. I called it, man. I'm gonna be honest with you all. I wrote this title of this video before I saw this. I promise, I cross my heart. I did not plan that. I didn't even look up who Kelsey was who wrote this article. That was just something I decided to do. I did not know. My goodness. Yeah, this show's made for Swifties, dude. This show is made for Swifties because the only people that are happy about this nonsense, Sauron and Galadriel being shipped, having this weird romance, are the people who are fans of Taylor Swift. The people that love a good, dramatic, tragic love story. And it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to Galadriel as a character. It's honestly disrespectful to Sauron, the villain of the story. It's disrespectful to him. And it's disrespectful to everybody who's dedicated their free time and their enjoyment of Tolkien's work. Heck, it's disrespectful to not only the fans who read the books, it's disrespectful to like Peter Jackson and all the people who made the original films when they show up ready to tell a story where to the best of their ability, they make a movie honoring the novels that Tolkien wrote and the characters and the values that Tolkien cared about. It's disrespectful that a show, Amazon Prime, just buys up the TV rights because that's all they have. They only have the TV rights to the Lord of the Rings books. So everything is based on the appendices of Return of the King, which is about the book's like that thick, depending on which copy you have. If the book's about that thick, the appendices are about that thick, right? So it's like 200 or so pages of history of Middle Earth, right? And that's all they have to work on when it comes to telling his stories. And I'm not going to say that's not enough, actually, because it is quite a bit. You can build a story around that and remain consistent with the lore. But this is made for not fans of Tolkien, not fans of people who care about stories of good versus evil, not fans of people who enjoy love stories in the appropriate place that are motivated from a good, wholesome place. And it's not made for fans who really want that drama and warfare and world building mixed. It's made for Swifties. This show is made for women who just want to see a tragic love story. That's all this is. Man, I'm getting wound up. I'm getting wound up. And I'm curious to hear in the comments. So leave a comment. I'm curious to hear what you all think about season 1 and this aspect of Sauron and Galadriel, coming together, especially when it comes to, we're going to get into some more specifics about Galadriel as a character, but especially when it comes to completely degrading the actually strong and powerful and majestic woman that Galadriel is, the elf woman she is, and the history she has that's tragic and beautiful and inspirational. And yes, has some twists and turns, and yes, mistakes along the way. But during this point in history, no. And also with Sauron, no. There's never an account where she fell in love with anyone who was anywhere near evil, or even had emotionally connected feelings toward anyone who was associated with evil. And I think it's the wrong move. It's disrespectful, and we shouldn't be seeing this because it's honestly in bad taste.